कृष्णाखान्वितं त्वं सजीवम् शाक्तैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां श्रवणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamya Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Jagana Raghunathanvitam Vam Sajivam Shantaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Nanta Sri Vishakhantam Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Gadadhar Vivasati Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Vivasati Gaur-bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
What do you like, Hari?
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Come quickly to that bathroom. It's going to close.
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavancha Shri Rupam Chakrajatam Sarvana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhantam Krishna Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Are you giving a class? We're chatting up for you. No. He's going to ask you a lot of questions today, so you better be on form.
Hoping that you give class. Is it on?
It's not for some day. Or whatever. Are you giving class? So, did they come to their science last time? They got together. They got together. Alright.
Hare Krishna is working.
Oh, you listen there.
Take it as dead.
He's a friend of Veronica.
Trying the bin.
Friend of Veronica.
Keep it. Bless it.
You know, well, the thing is already written.
Trying the bin. Yeah, you do what you have to do. But just follow the bin. I just start with Jai Radha. You can just put it down and watch it. Yeah. It'll be like 10 minutes. I don't know. I'll sing a bhajan, then I'll sing Jai Radha Madhava. You'll be like 10 minutes to do something? Okay.
Maybe less.
Okay. I'll sing a bhajan, then I'll sing Jai Radha Madhava when you come. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro
Okay, so today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text number 26, Sankhya Yoga. Is it Sankhya? No, Ashtanga Yoga. Okay. Ready? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Yato yato nischalalati. Manas chanchalam astiram. Tatas tato niyamayad. Atma eva visam nanyet. Yato nichalayati. Manas chanchalam astiram. Tatas tato niyamayad. Atmani eva visam nayat. Yato nichalayati. Manas chanchalam astiram. tatas tato niyamayayad atmani eva visamnayat yato nisalayati manas chanchalamasstiram tatos niyamadetad atmani eva visamnayat. Okay, that's okay. Yata wherever Nichalayati becomes very agitated. Manaha, the mind. Chanchalam, flickering. Astiram, unsteady. Tata, from there. Niyamya, regulating. Aetad, this. Atmani, in the self. Eva, certainly. Visham, control. Nayat, must bring under. Okay, translation is proposed by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Manor. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must suddenly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So Prabhupada's purport. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but the self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami or Swami. One who is controlled by the mind is called Godas, or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesh, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Om Agyanti Mandasya Gana Salakaya Chakshrume Tamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhistam Stapita Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupakara Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Satarine. So first I'm going to explain the significance of what the Bhagavad Gita is. This is from the Gita Mahatmya, from the Padma Purana. So the glories of chapter 1 explains how the Bhagavad Gita is like the body of Krishna. So this is Parvati speaking to Lord Shiva. Parvati, my dear husband, you know all the transcendental truths, and by your mercy I have heard the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. O Lord, now I long to hear from you the glories of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken by Lord Krishna, by hearing which one's devotion to Lord Krishna increases. Lord Shiva replied, that person whose body is the color of dark rain cloud, whose carrier is the king of birds, Garuda, and who is lying on Ananta Shesh, the 1,000-headed serpent, that Lord Vishnu, whose glories have no limit, I am always worshipping. My dear Parvati, once after Lord Vishnu had killed the demon Mura, he was resting peacefully on Ananta Shesh when the bestower of all good fortune of the universe, Sri Lakshmi, respectfully inquired from him. She said, Bhagwan, you are the controller and maintainer of the whole universe, but yet you are sleeping unhappily on this ocean of milk. What is the reason? Lord Vishnu said, my dear Lakshmi, I am not sleeping, but I am watching how wonderfully my energy is working. It is by this wonderful energy of mine that I am controlling all things, yet I remain separate. Yet it is by remembering these divine activities of mine that the great devotees and yogis manage to free themselves from the wheel of birth and death and attain to the transcendental nature of my own, which is eternal and free from all qualities. Lakshmi said, O controller of all things, you are the goal of the meditation of you great yogis. Nothing can go on without you. And yet you are separate. You are the cause of creation, maintenance and destruction of all the material universes. Kindly inform me about the workings of your wonderful energies, which are so attractive that even you are lying here meditating on them. Lord Vishnu said, My dear Lakshmi, the workings of my multifold energies, how to become free from the bonds of birth and death and attain my eternal nature can only be understood by one of pure intelligence, who has an inclination to render service unto me. This transcendental knowledge is fully explained in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Lakshmi said, My dear Lord, if you yourself are amazed by the workings of your energies and are ever trying to fathom their limit, then how is it possible that Bhagavad Gita can describe those unlimited energies of yours, how to cross over them and how to attain the transcendental nature? Lord Vishnu said, I myself have manifested in the form of Bhagavad Gita. Please understand that the first 5 chapters are my 5 heads. The next 10 chapters are my 10 arms. The 16th chapter is my stomach. The last 2 chapters are my lotus feet. In this way you should understand the transcendental deity of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a destroyer of all sins. An intelligent person who daily recites 1 chapter, or even 1 sloka, or even half a sloka, or even at least 1/4 sloka, will attain the same position as Shushudama had attained. Lakshmi said, Who was Shushudama? Who was Shushudama? Yeah. What class did he belong to and what destination did he attain? Lord Vishnu said, My dear Lakshmi, Shushudama was a very wicked and most sinful man. Although he was born in a Brahmana family, his family had no Vedic knowledge, and he took pleasure only from hurting others. He never engaged in chanting my names or giving charity or receiving guests. In fact, he never performed any pious activities. For his livelihood, he collected leaves and sold them in the bazaar. He especially enjoyed drinking wine, eating flesh. In this way, he passed his life. One day, the foolish Shushudama went to the garden of a sage to collect leaves when a snake came and bit him, and he died. After his death, he was cast into many hells, where he suffered for a long time. Then he attained the body of a bull. The bull was purchased by a crippled man who engaged him in his service. For about 7 or 8 years, he was carrying extremely heavy loads. One day, the crippled man piled a very heavy load onto the back of his bull. He was forcing the bull along quickly when suddenly the bull fell over and became unconscious. Many persons gathered there to see what was happening. Feeling sorry for the bull, pious man bestowed upon the bull the results of some of his pious activities. Seeing that other persons standing there started remembering their pious activities and offered the results of some of those activities to the bull. In the crowd there was also a prostitute who did not know if she had ever performed any pious activities, but seeing everyone else offering their pious credits to the bull, she also offered the results of any pious activities she might have performed. After that, the bull died and was taken to the abode of Yamaraj. the god of death. There Yamaraj informed him, "You are now free from the reactions of all your previous sinful deeds due to the previous credits given to you by the prostitute." Then he took birth in a very high Brahmana family. In that birth, he was able to remember his past lives. After many days, he decided to search out the prostitute who had been the cause of freeing him from the hellish situation. After he found and introduced himself to the prostitute, he inquired from her, "What were the pious activities performed by you, the fruits of which freed me from my hellish situation?" The prostitute replied, "My dear sir, in the cage is a parrot which recites something every day. Hearing that recitation, my heart has become completely pure. The results of hearing that recitation I have given to you." Thereafter, they both inquired from the parrot about the recitation. The parrot, remembering his previous life, started to narrate his history. He said, "Previously I had been a learned Brahmana, but due to my pride, I used to insult other learned persons. I was also extremely jealous. After I died, I was cast into many hells. After a long time of suffering, I achieved this body of parrot. Due to my past sinful activities, my mother and father died while I was a baby. One day, while I was lying on the hot sands with no protection, some rishis saw me and took me to their ashram and put me in a cage. At that place, the children of the rishis were learning the recitation of the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Hearing them repeat the slokas, I also started repeating those slokas along with them. Shortly after, a thief stole me from there and sold me to this pious lady." Lord Vishnu continued, "By reciting the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the parrot became completely pure. By hearing the recitation of the prostitute, also became completely pure. By receiving some of the pious results of hearing the recitation, Susharma also became completely pure." After discussing some time the glories of the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Susharma returned to his home, and three of them immediately engaged in reciting the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and quickly attained the pure destination Vaikuntha. Anyone who recites, hears or studies the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita will very easily cross over the ocean of material miseries, attain the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So that shows you the potency of Bhagavad Gita. It's not an ordinary book. But Prabhupada does warn that we should not read it like a story book. We should try and enter the teachings by living the teachings. So in the purport today, Prabhupada explains about the mind. He says how the mind is unflickering. There's an interesting story to show this point, how if you focus the mind on spiritual subjects, then it can change your destiny for the better. And what was yesterday's Ekadashi, you know? Anand, okay. Anand Ekadashi. So there's an interesting story to point this out. Anand Ekadashi. What did it say? This is it? Okay. So this is a story of one king who had lost his kingdom. You get the gist of the story. It's just the glories of Ananda Ekadashi are described in the Brahma Vavata Purana in the conversation between Lord Krishna and Maharaj Yudhishthir. Maharaj Yudhishthir said, "O Krishna, what is the name of the Ekadashi that occurs during the waning moon in the month of August, September? Please be kind to me and explain this." Lord Krishna replied, "O king, hear from me with full attention. The name of this auspicious Ekadashi which removes all one's sins is called Ananda Ekadashi. One who observes the vow of this Ekadashi and worships Lord Rishikesh, the master of senses, becomes free from the reactions of his sinful activities." In ancient times there was a famous emperor named Harishchandra. He was very truthful and honest. Due to some unknown deeds and in order to protect the validity of his promise, he lost his great kingdom. He even had to sell himself, his wife and his son. O king, this pious emperor became a menial servant of a dog eater. Still he maintained his firm faith in truthfulness. By the order of his master, the dog eater, he began to accept the clothes from the dead bodies in the crematorium as his salary. In spite of engaging in such low-class service, he did not fall from his truthfulness and proper code of conduct. In this way he passed many years. Then one day the king began to contemplate with great unhappiness, "What should I do? Where should I go? And how will I be delivered?" Seeing the great distress of the king, the great sage Gautama came to him. On seeing the great sage, the king thought that Lord Brahma has created the Brahmanas for the benefit of others. The king then offered his respectful obeisances to the best of the Brahmanas and stood before him with folded hands. And then he narrated his entire pitiful story to the sage Gautama. The great sage Gautama was astonished to hear the pathetic story of the king and said, "O king, the Ananda Ekadashi which occurs during the waning moon in the month of August, September is extremely auspicious and removes all sins. It is your good fortune that this Ekadashi is coming soon. You should observe this Ekadashi by fasting and staying awake at night. As a result of this, all your sinful reactions will soon be eradicated. O best of kings, only by your influence that I have come here." After instructing King Harishchandra in this way, the great sage Gautama disappeared. Thereafter, according to the instruction of the sage, the king observed the vow Ananda Ekadashi and became liberated from all his sinful reactions. Lord Krishna concluded, O lion-like king, the wonderful influence of this Ekadashi is such that one immediately exhausts the sufferings that he was destined to suffer for many, many years. By the influence of this Ekadashi, King Harishchandra regained his wife and his dead sons became alive. The demigods began to play drums and shower flowers from the sky. Thereafter, by the influence of this Ekadashi, the king enjoyed his kingdom without any impediments. Eventually the king went to the spiritual world along with his relatives, associates and subjects. O king, anyone who observes this Ekadashi will become free from all sins and will go to the spiritual world. By hearing or reading the glories of this Ekadashi, one can obtain the results of performing a whole sacrifice. So just imagine, this king just had that thought, what am I doing, what am my destination, just a thinking. And because he was truthful, he got the benefit of getting his kingdom back. And his dead son became alive. So we have to train our mind in spiritual subjects, spiritual topics. Another example of the mind was a story of Usha and Aniruddha in the Krishna book. Prabhupada comments on this story saying how this is quite elaborate story, but just give the main point of the story. No one could go into Usha's territory, where she was kept as a maiden. She had guards around her. Her father had 1,000 arms, very strong. No one could enter that place. But somehow the Usha was thinking of Aniruddha, who was one of Lord Krishna's grandchildren. And he's an expansion of, so he was Vishnu Tattva. So Usha had a friend called Chitralekha, and Chitralekha told Usha that I can find out who that person you're attracted to is. I'm a very good artist. I'll paint many pictures. So she started drawing pictures of different associates, like the Yadu dynasty, Lord Krishna's picture, Lord Balrama's picture. Then she drew the picture of Pradumna. Usha became attracted, but when she drew the picture of Aniruddha, she became very bashful. So then by Chitralekha's mystic powers, Aniruddha was sleeping in one of the palaces in Lord Krishna's place. Chitralekha got Aniruddha to come to the place where Vanasura was staying. It's quite a distance away, 1,000 miles, something very long. Somehow she got him to come in that area, and she got into the place where Usha was, in her quarters where no male could enter. Then Usha and Aniruddha started having a relationship. They were joking and playing, and the others found out that something is happening with the male, and they informed Banasura. So Banasura came and he saw Aniruddha. It was a perfect match, but because of his family pride, he couldn't accept that someone would just come in like that, where no males could enter the women's quarters. So Aniruddha started killing all the soldiers, and eventually Banasura caught him, separated from Usha. But anyway, the story goes on how ultimately Lord Krishna comes and kills Banasura. He defeats him, he cuts all his 1,000 arms off. He leaves 4 arms there or something. But the story goes, because Usha's mind was on Aniruddha, things worked out for her. Otherwise, normally, she couldn't get out that place. She was locked in as a maiden. No one could enter that place. Because that's what Banasura wanted, her to become a maiden. He didn't want her to get married or anything. He was restricting. So that shows the power of the mind. That if you train your mind on spiritual topics and subjects, the results you'll achieve are very high. This is why example of the Goswami is given, how Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In standard sense happiness, the senses are engaged in service of Rishikesh, the supreme owner of the senses. So, how to control the mind? You have to make sure your intelligence is like the bodyguard. So you shouldn't allow the bodyguard to become weak. Otherwise, you'll get people coming to cheat. If someone bribes a bodyguard, it's not very good. So the way you control the mind is Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, 3 lines of authority. The scripture, the saints, and the spiritual teachers. You keep the mind in check in these 3 lines of authorities. And then in this way your intelligence becomes strong. And then the controlling the mind is not so difficult, because Prabhupada said in today's morning's class how, or the Radhagoni were mentioning how, those who are passion ignorance, they can only approach the impersonal aspect of God. They can't approach the personal aspect. So, Prabhupada, in his conversations, he said Krishna consciousness is a very simple process. It's based on chanting, dancing and feasting. But devotee was asking Prabhupada, is there any challenges? So Prabhupada said, challenge is to come to mode of goodness. By coming to mode of goodness, then you can transcend, you can understand who Krishna is more easier. He says, even just reading Bhagavad Gita, even if you're not aiming to go back to Godhead, you just read it for the sake of reading it. You go to Dhruva Loka, Dhruva, the pole star. That's where all the planets revolve around the pole star. The sun and all the planets revolve, yeah. So that's where Lord Vishnu stays, as in the Milk Ocean. So Lord Vishnu gave that planet for Dhruva Maharaj to rule. So he said, even if someone is not aiming to be going back to Godhead, full surrender to Krishna, just by reading Bhagavad Gita, he gets the benefit of going to the pole star. So Krishna is very merciful like that. That he wants to elevate everyone to a high position. And we can see, unfortunately, so this change of destiny can only happen if one comes in touch with a devotee. And the other thing is, you have to do everything properly. Like any service you do, you have to do it properly. Like for example, if you're chanting japa, then you should chant separately, not hear class at the same time, like that. Because japa is a service in itself, like deity worship. So this is the way you do something properly. If you're studying scripture, you do it properly. You chant japa, you do it properly. Prabhupada says in his letters, he explains how even the yogis, those who have a inclination of going back to Godhead, they have no desires to go to the higher planets. Generally that's the case with yogis, but it could happen that some may want to explore the higher planets, but the interest is not there. This is in Glories of the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it's given how this one Brahmana, he was reciting the first 5 verses of the 18th chapter, and he wanted to become Indra. So after his life came to an end, the Vishnu came to him and said, what is your desire? He said, I want to become Indra. So Lord Vishnu sanctioned that. He took the other Indra's position and he put that devotee as Indra. So that other Indra came to Lord Vishnu and said, what happened? I did 100 horse sacrifices, and what did he do? And Lord Vishnu said, well, he pleased me, so he wanted to become Indra. I put him there. Because he recited the first 5 chapters of 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And then that other Indra, he started reciting the whole Bhagavad Gita. So when Lord Vishnu came to him and said, what do you want? He said, I want to go back to Vaikuntha. So that shows how even the positions in the material world are not very pleasurable compared to the spiritual world. Because even in the higher planets, there's always difficulties. Everyone's trying to control and lord it over, and so the goal should be to aim for the spiritual world. Any comments or questions? Antaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Everything okay? Yeah. That's good. Apologies. Put everything away.
Nice class.
And usually answers certainly longer.